Hi, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're excited about Care Jam, which is happening on December 2nd. I'm going to be kind of giving you a high-level kind of game jamming 101. We have some upcoming talks that go more in-depth into things like some interesting tools to help you with your game jam experience and things like that. But this is mostly just kicking things off, making sure everyone is on the same page about what a game jam is and how to kind of approach it to get the most out of your experience. Before we get started, I'm Sherveen. I'm one of the program instructors here at Coven. I do our Intro to Games course. I'm pretty sure there are a couple of my cohort folks in the call today. So hello. It's nice to see everyone outside of class. I think a little bit about my game experience. I've currently working on a game called Midautumn, which is kind of about Asian diaspora and gentrification, and it's got like Hades vibes if people are interested in that. But also in terms of game jams, a lot of my experience has been kind of small things. If folks are familiar with the Global Game Jam or like I think I did the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam a few years ago. It's very much been just little moments for me to make things that are like low stakes and I can experiment. And I often personally don't share a lot of the stuff I make in game jams because I like having the freedom to kind of just make things and experiment. So let's talk about what is a game jam for folks who might not be familiar. So I think a really good metaphor for it, and I think it's why they're called game jams in the first place, is that it's like when musicians get together to jam and like make music and kind of improvise, except we're making games instead. So just like jam sessions in music, you can do that with a group of people and kind of build off of each other's skills and kind of collaborate that way. You're also, there are plenty of jam sessions where you work solo and you're kind of thinking about your own process and what you want to experiment with as an individual. So as you can imagine, it's a great excuse to experiment, learn new skills, try things that you wouldn't normally get to do, whether you don't make games typically, or even if you make games in a professional capacity. It's very hard to take risks and try new things. So game jams being, short stretches of time where you kind of get to make a game is really great for that. Some game jams can be very short. There are 48-hour ones. There are 24-hour ones. This particular one, the Care Jam, is a week-long game jam, which actually is pretty long in terms of game jam length. So you'll have some time for some planning. You'll have some time to really think about what you want to make and kind of go forth with that. Definitely a great aspect of it is getting to collaborate with new folks. This can be through formal teams, but I also definitely encourage people to be posting in the community, in the Code Coven Discord as you're working and kind of chatting with folks. It's really fun to be making things alongside other people, even if you're working as a solo team, essentially. So that feeling of solidarity is really something that I enjoy, and I hope you get a lot out of that as well. And I think a thing that my personal philosophy on game jams is, at their best, they are low stakes. Everyone obviously you're individuals, and you're going to put your own pressures on yourself to make things. People don't want to make nice things and things that they're proud of. But I think that one of the best things for game jams is to kind of give yourself that freedom to make something that is outside of your comfort zone, and that you don't have to feel like it has to be perfect like 100% all the time. It's okay to take risks. It's okay to try new things, and it's okay to fail. This is like a low pressure environment. Failure is not an undesirable thing. I think that it's good to give yourself space to do that and to feel safe doing that. And again, a really good skill with game jams is just learning to finish things. it's very hard to, in the games industry, get to what we call it like a shipped product, where your game is out there, and because games take so long to make. And a game jam is a really great way to think, okay, I don't have to make this big project that is going to go on a store and it's going to sell for this many units. It's it's a great way to make something small and manageable that you can finish and learn a lot from that. The experience of finishing a game is one of the most educational aspects of making games, and it's very hard to get a ton of experience with that otherwise. So yeah, let's move on to scoping small. It's very important, I think, to not bite off more than you can chew when you're doing a game jam, in order to keep it feeling manageable and not like a ridiculous amount of work for you to do. So when I talk about scope, we are talking about how big or complex or time consuming is the game we're making. And there are a number of ways that we try and figure out scope when we're making games. And I encourage you to do this leading up to the jam and during the jam as well. So one of the there's a very high level kind of description of how scope works. So feel free to go and kind of do your own research on this as well, if that's helpful to you. But essentially, the way that we think about a game scope is we try and think about all the little tasks that go into making a game. So like games can seem very big and like nebulous, but they're always going to be made of tiny little tasks that kind of add up to the sum of their parts. You're going to figure out how complicated those tasks seem. I actually will point out, I'd like to think of how complex things are, because I think as people, we're very bad, I think, in the games industry at estimating time. So thinking about things in terms of complexity instead of time is often helpful. And then you find ways to simplify where you can, and you make sure you have extra padding. So I want to, while we have time, try like a little quick exercise in the chat, and we'll give this a go. So let's pick like a simple task, like let's say like brewing a cup of tea, right? And I would love to see folks think of, okay, what are all the little individual tasks that go into brewing a cup of tea that we have to think about if you were trying to give instructions to someone. Okay, how do I brew a cup of tea? Let's see. Can we see that in the chat? We'll see if this works. I can't see my mouse. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I'm seeing people saying, okay, you got to have water, you have saucer, water, tea bags. So these are instructions. Oh, and Lydia, yes, is there a way to watch the session later if we're busy and can't make it? This is being recorded right now, and it will be posted. Lauren can speak to where it's being posted. So let's see, we've got, okay, fill kettle. I think, yeah, you have to fill the kettle, what kind of mug you want. This is Mal's writing, get a cup, fill up the cup with water, heat up the water, put it in a tea bag, let it steep for 7 minutes. Oh, here we go. Mylia is saying that this will be posted on YouTube. So that's very good. The type of tea, because there's tea and then there's tea, all caps. That's I agree. So there are definitely, like, it's very easy to see how something as simple as making a cup of tea can, when you start to think about it, okay, let's say you're trying to explain this to someone who has never heard the concept of tea. There's so many little steps that we even kind of make assumptions about. So there's this example: grab the kettle, fill it with water, turn on the fire and start boiling, grab a teacup, grab a tea bag off the shelf, add some water, wait a few minutes, add sweetener. And then like the challenge, I would say, like, even these are all great, is don't microwave the water. I feel like Americans microwave water a lot. That's like a very but yeah, even with these are very good, right? You can, yes, Lauren, Americans do microwave tea water. That's the thing. So I will not get into tea opinions, I guess. I'm a tea agnostic, so I'm gonna not take sides here. But the point I wanted to make was that even with like these very specific instructions, there are like little assumptions here, like, oh, where is your kettle? How do you know where your kettle is? Oh, how do you fill it with water? And thinking about making your game can be the same, right? It's when you're making, let's say you want to make a platformer, you have to think about, okay, I have to make a character that has to go, there has to be platforms, you have to jump. But actually, we'll go back to the deck here and point out this line, which is find ways to simplify where you can. And it's the idea is that, okay, let's say we were making all this steps to make our tea. You know, there are definitely shortcuts we can make, right? Where we could go and buy tea and go to a store and buy tea, or we can, you know, you don't have to like make your own sugar or your cream or, you know, what have you. So the examples like in games would be, you know, find things that you can use, free assets, things on the Unity Asset Store or on the internet. Those are really great ways to simplify the complexity of things. So that's, yeah, that's what I would recommend. Make ways to make things easier on yourselves and add extra time for things. We're notoriously bad at figuring out how long a game is going to make. So my tip for you going forward into the jam is to try and think of your project as something that you think will only take half the time you're given. And so that way, if you are right, you finish half the time and you have all this extra time to kind of make it extra great and wonderful and lovely. And if you're wrong, then you can still relax because you have extra time. So my goal is for everyone to, on the last day of the jam, to not be in panic mode, trying to finish things. And like, you know, it's I want everyone to be able to like calmly wake up on the last day and like hit submit and feel like calm and zen about it. I think that's the best way to approach this. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. So for many of you, you will be working in teams. So this is kind of some high level ways to set expectations and kind of approach that, considering a lot of you might be working with people you haven't really worked with before. So my big thing with working in teams for game jams is to set expectations up front, check in often, like really over communicate here, you know, let people know what's going on. It makes it a lot easier for folks to make decisions. So when I say set expectations, that means, you know, what are you trying to get out of the game jam? How much availability are you going to have? What skills are you bringing to the table? What are things that you're doing that you might not be skilled at? And so you might be learning during the jam. I think that's very good to just discuss, is at the very least beforehand, and make sure everyone is just aware of everything and you can kind of work with as few surprises as possible. There is a very common process in a lot of game teams called stand-up meetings. So I think this is a very good process for folks who are new to working in teams. So the idea of a stand-up meeting in game teams, like there's literally like you will stand up and do this, but they're very short meetings. They happen regularly, so I would recommend like every day. Essentially, you'll kind of check in at the top of the day, and you'll mention three things, which is, what did you get done since the last time you all spoke? What are you planning on doing before the next stand-up? And are there any blockers or problems or things that are stopping you from completing the tasks that you're trying to get done? And the idea is that if there are blockers, you'll kind of roll out of that stand-up meeting and folks will kind of know to like maybe send you like links to a tutorial or kind of troubleshoot that with you throughout the day. And so stand-up meetings are supposed to be very short. Typically, they're no longer than 15 minutes. Otherwise, you're like spending probably more time on them than you need to. And a great thing about them is they can happen over text. So if you're working with people, you know, across different time zones, or you can't really get together at all at the same time, they can happen throughout the day asynchronously without you having to kind of spend a huge chunk of your time in a meeting. So I definitely recommend that as a process. And then I definitely do want to like highlight the idea of getting a consensus with your team. So, talking about your goals, as I mentioned, for this project, and also beyond the jam, right? So, are you planning on making a small project that you don't touch again after this jam? Do you want to use it in any capacity afterwards? Like, are you going to publish it somewhere on itch.io or something? Are you planning to use it in a portfolio? Is it okay for members of the team to reuse any assets you make for other projects? There's no like correct answer to any of these questions. I just think everyone will have a smoother time if you're talking about it in advance, discussing it, and just making sure that everyone feels good about whatever you are deciding to do. I think this is the last slide I have, which is just about sharing your projects. Itch.io, as I mentioned, is a great place to share your builds. Definitely be posting like in progress things and your final build links and everything in the Code Coven Discord. As you're kind of working on everything, it's such a great aspect of jams to be able to see everyone kind of coming together with their projects. And also, if you're posting on social media, I would make sure to use the hashtag #CareJam2021. The Code Coven socials can see it and we can retweet it and we can give you lots of love. With that, I think that will bring us to the end of this high-level talk. I'll check the chat and see if anyone has any quick questions or anything like that. But also, I want to mention like good luck. Good luck with all of the other info sessions going forward. I hope everyone gets to feel very prepared and has a lovely time doing the Care Jam. So thank you so much for listening to me. Let me just go through the chat. Let me see if there's anything that's happened and said. All right. Yes. Okay. So I'm seeing a question here that says, I found with new people that they often aim high on the scope of the game. Should that attitude be discouraged? What I will say is that at the end of the day, your jam experience is up to you. If you want to scope really high and try something really ambitious, I think that that's okay. I think that the main thing is making sure that you are setting good expectations of yourself so that you're not creating an environment where if you fail to do something ambitious, that it makes you feel negative about yourself. That's my main thing. And yes, the presentation will be available on YouTube. And I think, we'll just, I'll do a quick question. Someone's asking, it's my first time being a writer. Would you recommend having a general story prepared in advance or wait until I learn more about the kind of game my team wants to make? I think that the amount of time that you are given, another question as well. I think that the amount of time that you are given for the jam is meant to be enough, essentially. So the reason I would say wait until the jam starts and just is to give yourself time. Don't feel like you have to prepare everything. It's okay to make a smaller scope story and take the time in the jam to kind of do that, as opposed to feeling like you need to prepare everything in advance. Okay, I'm also seeing a question. In pre-production phase, what are things that are necessary to compromise on for time? So if this question is about kind of cutting down on your pre-production time, I think that what I would say is you essentially want a clear vision of what you're going to do. What is the list of components that is your minimum viable version, minimum viable product of the game you're making? So without all the bells and whistles, the simplest version of the game. And also if you're working in a team, a sense of who is working on what availability people have, and are there any challenges that are unknowns that don't know yet, and you might need to research. I think beyond that, you probably don't need as much for pre-production, but it's also it depends on your preference. Some folks might benefit more from just taking a bit more planning time. Have there been successful 3D game jams? I've only ever seen 2D games. You can definitely do 3D games. I recommend using kind of art assets and things to speed up how quickly you're able to do that. But I definitely do know that if for some people, making 3D models is something they want to do. And if you want to experiment with that, like, go ahead. What I would say is, if you're trying to learn 3D modeling, for example, making one model versus making 5 models isn't that different in the scope of a game jam. So it might be fine to make like one model and then use free assets for everything else to kind of help scope down. And then I feel like I also saw another question that I am missing. I feel like I'm missing a question that I saw earlier. But Lauren, if there is a question I missed, send it my way. Otherwise, I'm also saying, is a game design document necessary? I don't think that a formal game design document is necessary unless that is helpful to you. I think things like brainstorm documents, things like a Miro board, task lists, those are probably more likely to be helpful. I won't say that it's not helpful, because it depends on what works for you, right? Do what's comfortable for you. Don't you will be taking like risks and experimenting during game jams by necessity. So try and keep everything else easy, right? So so someone's asking, is it okay during this game jam to ask other people to playtest it? I think that's, totally fine. We have official mentors, as Lauren said in the chat, for playtesting. And I definitely think people should be playing each other's games. I think it's a great way to kind of interact with each other during the jam, to get ideas as well for your own games and like see what other people are doing. That's totally fine. All right. I think, let's see. We'll see if there's any other questions. Writing. Okay, I feel like I've gotten them, but if I missed any of your questions, message me about it. Otherwise, we'll just kind of let this talk end slowly. But yeah, no, thanks so much, everyone. I'm really, excited to see what everyone comes up with. If anyone wants to, reach out to me as well, that's totally fine. If anyone has questions that you feel like I specifically can help you with, feel free to message me about that. And also, the entire Coven community is going to be supportive. So, thanks so much, everyone. I think we'll close this out and we'll end the talk here. And good luck with the rest of the sessions.